I want to talk umbilical cord care with you, and I want to show you not just normal or what to expect, but also some abnormals too, to give you just a better picture of what that might look like. So this beautiful image is from the expert doula. Her birth photography is gorgeous. This is a very fresh cord, right? Like it's probably just been clamped, and they put that little clamp on there once it's been cut. That clamp usually stays on until you go home, and the nurse often snips it right at that little cord. It doesn't hurt them at all, right in this little hole. There's a little tool, we put it in, we snip, the clamp comes off, and you go home and the cord is very dry. I'll show you a picture of that in a second. Every once in a while I've heard that some hospitals don't remove the clamp and you go home with cord and clamp, and then it all just falls out at once together. But typically I think you're going to find that that clamp is going to get removed. A better picture of what the cord looks like when you go home. So it's all dried out and crusty. It's more like scabbed over, and your job at home, like I said, it's just going to be to watch and do nothing. Most of the time providers are going to prefer a sponge bath. Some providers don't care if you put baby in the tub because the evidence doesn't say you can't, that the cord will still dry out and do just fine. But I find that most still prefer a sponge bath. Other thing you're going to be doing is watching for signs of infection, right? So you're keeping it dry, and then you're watching for those signs, which can be redness, like swelling and inflammation around the site, redness there, a foul odor, a pus maybe leaking out, and then active bleeding as well. Those are things where you might want to call your provider and say, hey, this isn't looking great. What do you think about that? So this is actually the signs, they were beginning signs of a cord that wasn't doing what it was supposed to. So usually, like I said, it dries out, falls off in about 1 to 3 weeks or so. This was around the 2-week mark, and you see this really dark. This is actually like bleeding and scabbing that kept happening. So it wasn't drying out inside, like deep inside of that cord stump. So I snapped a picture, sent it to my PV and said, hey, it looks like this. It hasn't fallen off yet. What do you think? And essentially they said, let's just keep watching, waiting, see what happens, leave it alone. Of course, your job is not to ever pull it off. Let it do its own thing. If it's hanging by a thread, let it do its own thing. So they said, just leave it. Let's give it a few more days and see what happens. Unfortunately, when it did fall off, it was looking like this. So it did come away cleanly. Those little pieces there are actually little kind of scabs and chunks of it that were left. You can leave those on, don't pick those off. But what we saw was this active bleeding still coming out through there. So it would bleed, and then it would scab and bleed and scab, and it just wasn't drying out. So we ended up going in and getting something called silver nitrate. They put it down there like in the stump, and it can help kind of expedite that healing, drying out process so that it can kind of fully close and be done. Unfortunately, when we did the silver nitrate, it continued to look like this. And what happened essentially is that we had to go back in and do a second round of silver nitrate because it would just not stop bleeding. So it would bleed and scab, just like it had been. So we went back and we got a second round of nitrate, gave it a few days to kind of like permeate and get in there. And eventually the cord stump dried out, it stopped bleeding. We were good to go. Ultimately, I just wanted you to see some abnormals because we hear a lot about like, you don't have to do anything. Sometimes you do. Not a big panic, not a ton to worry about. But if this is going on or any of those other signs of infection, it's worth taking a picture, giving your provider a call, letting them know so you guys can follow up and figure out what's going on.